What's up, nation? Expert alert! If you need somebody to help organize your business, get that infrastructure in place, today is the show for you. Alicia Butler Pierre joining me today, live in the lab with Keith Bilous. Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab. All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching, because I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going. How did you go viral on TikTok? You were on America's Got Talent. How much do you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid. Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep. You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? Like, what you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real. We brought you in with some Marley. I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, well, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing. I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2. I've built an AI myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if they're all they're going to do is hurt humanity? Does the world need an Oppenheimer moment with AI?
What a fun show.
What's going on, nation? Hey, Alicia Butler Pierre is joining us in the lab. She's got bad lighting. I don't blame me. Don't blame the old Uncle Keith here. She's got bad lighting, but she's got a lot of great information for us today. So if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're like, I got to get my business organized. Today's the show for you. You know what? When I sold my company, when I took my company from 0 to 50 mil and sold it, you know what drove the value? And you know why I booked Alicia? Because we had it organized. Oh, yeah. We had filing cabinets and we had boxes and we had labels on everything. You're like, really, Keith? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For every box, we added $1 million. For every label, we added a couple $100,000. For every extra process was another few $1 million. So I cannot encourage you enough. I'm a little excited today, as you can see. I cannot encourage you enough. If you're a business owner, get your shit organized. Alicia can help you, I suspect. I'm suspecting that's her role. She is the founder and CEO of Equilibria, a 2% podcast host. 2%. What's a 2% podcast host? I'm going to ask her that question. I'm a 1% podcast host. We debuted Keith and Di Manuel. We debuted today. Number 5. 2 dads in a lab in Afghanistan. There you go. 2 dads in a lab, number 5 in Afghanistan. We are making a difference, Di Manuel, in Afghanistan. We're helping all those dads in that country get 2% better. So you can find that show here in the lab on Fridays. Every Friday, we drop a brand new show. Last week, we had Wayne Boatwright, spent 6.5 years in San Quentin. You want to catch that show. I would encourage you to catch that one. But today we got Alicia Butler Pierre. We're going to dig in for less than an hour. She's got a hard stop, so I'm not going to talk very long. No, I spent the whole morning talking. You're like, what? It's true. Oh, I'm having a problem here. It looks like I'm having a problem on LinkedIn here. So I'm going to have to see if I can get this sorted out here in a second, but I won't worry about it at the moment. Anyways, this morning on Mornings in the Lab show, we did a couple of good things. We talked about how Sandra McHale exploded her LinkedIn in 1 week with 1,000 new followers. True story. She went from to the in 1 week, and we dug into that this morning. So I would encourage you to check out this morning's episode. It's streaming. It's all over the internet. It is how Sandra McHale exploded her LinkedIn by 1,000 followers, as well as we dug into a conversation we had yesterday with Dr. Sarah. I keep calling her Sarah Carter. Dr. Carter, we talked about the importance of grace in the workplace. Too often forgotten about. Grace. We talked about it this morning. If you find yourself going to a meeting today, here's the reminder. If you find yourself going to a meeting today, have some grace for the person sitting across from you, because you don't know what they're going through. So if they're having a difficult day, it might be coming across in the meeting they're in. So just consider some grace. Lastly, We talked about the power of an assumption meeting. You're thinking an assumption meeting. Yeah, an assumption meeting. You go to that meeting where you wipe out all the assumptions about you and all the assumptions about me. They do exist. I sat down with a guy last year. He's like, Keith, I got all these assumptions about you. I'm like, oh. I said, I have all these assumptions about you. He's like, oh. So we sat down and we put them down. I'm like, oh, that's not you at all. He's like, Keith, that's not you at all. I said, no. So if you find yourself stuck with somebody at work, the best way to wipe out those assumptions is go and communicate. Go sit across, offer some grace, and wipe out the assumptions. There you have it. And that's a great way to get the business organized along the way. So I'm going to swift our attention to Alicia Butler Pierre, who is in the green room, patiently waiting for me to walk her in the lab here. So I am going to move my attention to the left. We're going to invite her in, and we're going to continue the conversation with Alicia Butler Pierre, and I'm going to get all my buttons figured out while I'm talking to her here, and I'm going to go, hey, what's shaking?
Oh my gosh, Keith, can you bottle up whatever that energy is? Can you like bottle that up and maybe FedEx that bottle over to me?
I would be happy to do that for you. Are you kidding me? I'm all about that.
And can I say this really quickly? First, thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I've been called a lot of things over the years. I have never been called an infrastructure innovator. So thank you for that.
So did it work then? Like, is that
it did. It totally worked. I was like, oh, okay. I like that.
Well, because that's what you do, right? That's what you do. You help organizations, ensure their business infrastructure is in place. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. But no one has kind of put those two words together in the way that you have.
Oh, well.
So thank you.
So there you have it. We've been able to take some. We're master communicators here in the lab. So hold on. Yes. Let's make sure we take the master and the communicator and pause in between the middle of them, because we don't want to put the other word on the behalf of the master. That's for a different show. So you don't know this, but we're here to entertain and inform. I had Dr. Will Anderson on when we talked about the master and the other word that gets attached to master for other guys that are kind of, be curious about the master part of things. So that's for a whole other show. Today, we're here to talk about mastering infrastructure innovation.
Yes, indeed.
With Alicia Butler Pierre. I'm having a little bit of challenges streaming into LinkedIn at the moment here, so I'm going to keep chatting while I'm talking with you and get that back on, because we want to make sure the audience can see what we're up to.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying here?
So, and I love how you're able to just improvise and just keep it going. I call it flowing in the flux.
Yes.
Right? You just
keep
going.
It's a live show.
Yeah.
It's something that we're proud that we create here in the lab. We're not too focused on creating massaged, fake, AI-generated podcast content, Alicia. We want to be raw and real. We want to massage it live in the open and pivot in front of everybody along the way. I say that tongue-in-cheek, of course, because this will be on demand for everybody later. It will be a podcast later.
I mean, it has to be, right?
Oh, for sure. So I just feel like we're going to laugh the whole time. My camera's all messed.
We will. I can tell you right now.
We will laugh the whole time together. So where are you joining us from today? With the cloudy skies behind?
I know. So I am in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And it's funny because it hardly ever rains here. Well, it rains, but not like a hard rain.
Yes.
Like where I'm from originally. I'm originally from Louisiana, where it rains a lot. So it's just interesting that of all days, the days that I have my interview with Keith,
yes,
that it decides to rain.
What the heck?
So, apologies for the darkness that surrounds me.
Maybe there's a good reason for that, though.
Maybe so, because the rain makes me, I don't know about you, but rain makes me very sleepy.
Oh.
So after this, I am sure, a couple of hours after this interview, I will be in bed. I will Netflix right after this interview, right?
I caught Nation.
I was like, Keith, I only have like 60 minutes. I have a hard stop at 60 minutes. Got to get that sleep time.
I say no more. She starts this before we go on the air. She's like, Keith, I go, yeah. He's like, "Keith, I have a hard stop." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, well, that's no problem. I'll make sure you get your next appointment on time." We know, nation, the next appointment is her bed. The thing is, nobody knows that after my show is done, I go to bed too because I'm just wiped. I'm not going to bed.
Oh my goodness.
You think you were going to laugh this much for an hour with me, Alicia?
I had no idea.
You had no idea what you're getting yourself into, did you?
I did not. I've listened to some of your other episodes and I don't remember there being as much laughter. I mean, it's entertaining, don't get me wrong.
Oh, good, good that it's working.
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
kids are like, "So, Dad, what do you do these?" I'm like, "I'm an entertainer." Oh yeah, I'm a fucking entertainer. That's what I do. I never thought I'd wake up to call myself an entertainer, but I'm calling myself an entertainer. I used to call myself an entrepreneur, but I couldn't afford those other, like, there's more letters in entrepreneur than there are entertainer. And all those extra letters were costing me too much money. So I'm just gonna be an entertainer.
Got it.
And I decided last week, at least, I'm gonna break some news with you right now. Can I break news with you?
Of course.
All right, breaking news. I should maybe change the camera view on this one. So if I'm gonna break news, I should change the camera. So I'm gonna go to this one right here.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go after Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast's mission is to be the largest YouTube creator in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can get a percentage of that. Maybe I could be like the biggest talk show host in the entire world. Maybe I can channel my inner Letterman, Leno, and Rogan, and Stern, and all the Keith Bilous, and take some of that Mr. Beast and create the world's greatest conversation.
That would be something else.
Like, actually, why not?
Hey, you know what? I'm all about the moonshot. That's one of my words for this year.
Hold on. So, Nation, did she just say moonshot?
I did.
At least she doesn't know me very well. That's not a moonshot. That's just like normal. No, moonshot is going to the moon for Uncle Keith. No, to be the world's greatest talk show host is like just something on my list. To others, maybe it's a moonshot, but to me, it's like, I'm just going to do that.
Okay. All right.
I kid. Really, we're not here to talk about me. We are here to talk about you. And we are here to dig into, I think, something that businesses pay attention to, but I don't think they pay attention enough to because they get so busy being in business, which is all the process infrastructure, the I's dotted, the T's crossed, the pausing for a few moments to make sure everything in process is buttoned up before we can move forward. That's really what your company does, right? That's really what you're all about, right? Which is helping organizations button down, put those processes in place so that they can grow and get to the next level. Did I set your organization up correctly?
You did. Spot on.
So you started this company 15 years ago, and I think 15 or 18 years ago, I believe, right?
It's coming up on 19 years.
Oh my goodness.
Believe it or not. I know because I'm only 13, so
well,
I don't know.
You have bad lighting. So just imagine if it had good lighting, you'd be like 6. So Alicia's 13. So the hook for the thumbnail. So when you guys are watching on the thumbnail, 13-year-old mega entrepreneur Alicia Butler Pierre.
A child prodigy. You know what I'm saying? But no, you hit it. You hit it spot on. Seriously, you really did.
Yeah. So what fascinated me about your business, and again, you're thinking fascinating about my business, what you do interests me. And I'll tell you why, because I think plenty of people overlook it. And I've seriously watched you grow a successful business by everybody overlooking what you're doing something good at. And when you can solve a problem repeatedly over and over and over, and people really don't notice that you're solving a problem, that to me is a really successful business.
Wow. You know what? I really needed to hear you say that because it's tough when you feel as though you're talking, but no one is listening.
Oh, do tell.
Well, because it's exactly what you just said, Keith, that so many people overlook this because it's grunt work. It's not easy, right? You know, you've built several businesses. You've built one to $50 million. You sold it. It is a lot of effort to finally roll up your sleeves and get into the trenches and make sure, as you said earlier, that all of the I's are dotted, all of the T's are crossed. It can be chaotic. You can lose some folks along the way, but that is what growth looks like. It's not always pretty and it gets messy, but there's that pot of gold on the other side if you can just weather the storm. And so to elaborate just a little bit more on what I mean by, talking and feeling like no one is listening. I would say I went for a good 13, 14 years, Keith, just grinding, putting things out there, putting content out there online. Do you remember SlideShare?
I
I don't
do.
know if you,
Yes.
yeah, I was putting so much content out there, doing stuff on LinkedIn, and it was just, I'd get some hits, views here and there, but it wasn't until I wrote a book that that was the true tipping point. And then I did a podcast. I started a podcast, and I started becoming not only more and more confident in my abilities, because I knew it worked. I knew from the clients that I've worked with, this stuff works, this stuff matters. How can I say it in a way that will grab attention, be somewhat entertaining, which is why I appreciate your style so much, but also at the same time, educate people about what this is, why it matters, and why it's not even up for debate if it's something you should or should not have. If you are very serious about not just growing, but scaling, like you were talking about scaling your show, um, you absolutely have to have these things in place. You have to have a business infrastructure that serves as a solid foundation upon which you can just continue growing. And again, not just growing, but scaling. So that's why I'm so grateful to you for sharing your platform with me, because the more I can talk about it, the more opportunities I have to write about it, to blog about it, to do videos about it, the better, until it finally, again, will reach some type of another tipping point, if you will. Uh-oh, I can't hear. You're on mute, Keith.
I'm suspecting people don't pay much attention or want to ignore what you're saying because typically up front you're a cost. You're coming in, you're saying to somebody, I'm going to cost you some money, Keith, to organize your business. You're not going to see any uptick right now until you get stuff organized. Then once it stabilizes, you're going to see a reset in revenue. But what I think your challenge is convincing me to get over that pause of making my life difficult in order to reset to the next level. Am I correct in that too?
That is
Yeah.
absolutely correct. And you know what my argument is? The
Yeah.
same is true for any service that you invest in, right? So
Yes.
think
Yes.
about if you were to invest in social media services, publicity. I mean, it's amazing to me, all of these pay to play models now when it comes to personal branding and publicity. They all want you to pay some type of money just to be featured,
Yes.
in Forbes or the Harvard Business, all of these places. So it's the same thing. You invest that money, but I think the difference is, and this is something I often talk about and write about, Keith. I call it the battle between marketing and operations. Marketing, when we think about it, those are all of the activities related to things that people see, things that your customers and potential customers can actually see. They can see you in the lab, they can see your equipment, they can see your background. Okay, I feel confident that Keith knows what he's doing. I like what I see. I like what he's doing. Operations are the things that your customers or potential customers don't necessarily see,
Yes.
but they experience it. So as a listener, if think about it, I'm watching you live right now, and others who are on different platforms who are watching us live, they can see us. But what about the folks who will only listen to this as a true podcast? They will only hear us. They have no idea of what you do in the background, Keith, just to prepare for a live session. That's the operations. And it's just as important, because in order to have this great lab that you have, which looks amazing, your operations needs to be just as great and just as amazing. So that's the argument that I always make to people. Imagine you have a shiny apple, it's golden, it's beautiful, and then you slice that apple in half and it's rotten on the inside. So it does you no good if your marketing is you've done such a great job at promoting yourself, and you have this publicity and you have the social media and you're doing all of these things to attract people to you and your business. But then once they get there, they're like, okay, I placed an order 5 weeks ago. You told me I would have it ready in 3 days. Where the hell is it?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
operations. Operations has to make sure that they can deliver on the promise that the marketing folks are making.
Yeah. Yeah. The best example of operations and the best example of delivering operationally has been the current leader of a company you just referenced, indirectly for the last, whatever, 12, 15 years, has been Tim Cook, operational expert of Apple. So we see their wonderful marketing. We feel so great the way they sell products to us, but nobody fully understands the complexities of those processes and procedures behind the scenes that go into making this thing and then getting it into our hands every single year. Yeah, exactly. That's a great example of process coming to life in the light of
Absolutely. And you know something, since you mentioned Apple,
marketing.
something that Steve Jobs used to often say is the more simple something appears, the more complex it likely is behind the scenes.
Ah,
Because think about it, when you go to Apple's website, when you go inside of an Apple store, everything has a very clean interface. It's not junky, it's not chaotic. When you go inside of an Apple store, everybody knows what they're doing. All the people who work there can help you, they can assist you. And if they don't know the answer to your question, they can, they have no problem introducing you to someone who can help you. But we have no idea of the amount of training that's going on behind the scenes.
mhm.
We might not have an appreciation for all of the development. I have an iPhone as well. And so when I turn on my iPhone, I see a very clean, simple interface. When I go to my iCloud account, I see a very clean, simple interface. But I have no idea of the intricacies that have gone on behind the scenes just to make that clean, simple interface.
Mhm. People often argue that operations is more important than sales, or sales and marketing is more important than operations. I'm going to suspect your answer is, well, operations is more important than sales and marketing. Am I wrong with that? Or do you believe that they're 50-50 in a business? Or what's
I,
your
be-
percentage?
I believe they're 50-50. Now, I will say this because the name of my company is Equilibria, right? So if
Yes.
we think of it as a scale, so when we achieve that true balance, we do have a 50-50, right? However, Keith, when we talk about, let's talk about the life cycle of a business.
Yes.
And we can use your business as an example, the one that you sold
Sure.
when it reached that $50 million mark. So in the startup days, I'm sure it was probably what, 85, 90% marketing, 10% operation. Like, in other words, you have to be vested in the sales, the marketing, the
Yes.
business development, because otherwise no one will know about your product or your service,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But something starts to happen. So let's say if this is marketing and this is operations, something starts to happen, Keith. You get so good at the marketing side that you start having more and more business come your way.
Mm.
And if operations is still down here, your clients will suffer
Mhm.
because there may not be enough people behind the scenes to make sure that whatever you promised here in the sales and marketing area is
Mhm.
actually delivered, right? So then you might start to see kind of something like this, where then all of a sudden you have to really, 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 you have to taper down, or, kind of not suppress your sales and marketing, but not maybe invest as much
Mhm.
time, effort, and energy as you did in the beginning stages. And now start to focus on things like building your team, documenting your processes, investing in the right technologies to figure out where you can automate and streamline some of those processes, building the business infrastructure. Those are all of the operational things. And then once those things are done, eventually, you have, it's a scale, right?
Mhm.
But then eventually that scale starts to level out. And then, of course, it's business. Business is cyclical. We all know that. So the scales will become imbalanced
Mhm.
over, from time to time. But the point is this: as long as you have that stable foundation, you always have a, what do we call it? Not a focal point, but like what ground zero is.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I think businesses lose the balance of the equilibrium when they lose sight of what got them there, which is sales. So I come from the world of sales. So I'm an operational freak because I love building and I love understanding how things are built. For example, I'm building this business. I always use the example, Alicia, of a pizza restaurant. I've needed to learn as the owner how to make the pizza to how I've wanted it to be made. Once I'm comfortable with how I want the pizza to be made, I can now show Alicia, here's how we now make the pizza. When you're starting a business from scratch, that's really what it's about, which is saying, okay, I'm the founder. I have a vision for this pizza. It's going to look like this. It's going to taste like this. It's going to be like this. Step one, I teach it. Okay, now I've learned how to do it. Now I'm going to show Alicia how to do it. Now I got to go sell. So I
Yep.
can go sell a bunch of pizzas. To me, Alicia, businesses get caught up in the fact where they get so good at making the pizzas, they forget about selling. And they're like, oh, we're great at making pizzas. Sales just going to keep coming in. And then one day they wake up, go, the fucking sales aren't coming in. Nope,
Yep.
they're not coming in. I'm of the belief sales is what makes the organization go around. I always believe that you can pull levers on operations. And it's not to be dismissive on the value of operations, but I'm a huge believer as a founder, as an entrepreneur. And I think you probably have props. I'm going to even maybe speak for you. Without sales, you don't have a process-based business. Like you would not have equilibrium had you not sold people on those first few days and went and kept selling and then went and kept figuring out how you were going to deliver it. You had to figure out how to sell it first and then figure out how to deliver it as you kept scaling. So while I do recognize that there's balance there, I still think at the end of the day, the balance needs to at least fall 51-49 or 50.5 to 50 on sales to make sure that it's always driving the equilibrium of operations, because that's when you get off balance, Alicia.
Mm-hmm.
It's like on the razor's edge. Do you follow me? Right?
Yeah. So maybe it's that the pole that the
Yeah.
scales. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Like I do agree they're 50-50, but I think again where businesses get too caught up is they get really comfortable in the fact that we're good at making pizzas. We're great at it. Oh yeah, we're great at it. And then they lose sight of, because sales is hard, right? It's
It
hard.
is hard. It is very hard. I had a professor in business school who strongly encouraged all of us. He said, I don't know why most people, you all want to go work on Wall Street. You all want to do finance and you want to do this and you want to do that. He said, get a job selling something first. He used to say
Interesting.
that all the time. Yeah, he would tell us that all the time
Did you take that?
because I didn't because it's interestingly in my undergraduate studies I had a minor in technical sales, but I was always very good at on the business development side of things and not necessarily actual sales. I'll
Mm.
tell anybody sales is my Achilles heel personally, but
Ah,
I'm very good with business development.
yes.
Um, so, but that's interesting what you say about sales. This is an interesting conversation. It's absolutely needed, obviously, because it's the lifeline, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's the
Yes.
lifeline. It's if we look at the arteries that are
Mhm,
flowing through your business, that
mhm.
it's sales. Sales is kind of driving that. But sorry, I'm having an eye twitch right now. But yes, it's operations. So many people fundamentally don't understand what it is. And that is another challenge, Keith, because oftentimes when companies do find themselves in a position like you, when you were growing and
Mhm,
scaling your business
mhm.
to that $50 million company that you had, and maybe I should ask you, did you when you went looking for assistance,
Yes. Yeah.
Was it easy to find?
When you say assistance, as you mean humans or as you mean raising money?
No, not in raising money, in terms of getting someone who said, okay, Keith, you got to get your processes documented. You need to build that
Ah,
business
yeah.
infrastructure. You need an operations manual, things like that. Like it's very difficult for small businesses to find those types of resources, because one of two things usually happens when they go online looking for this kind of help.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, first of all, if they even know what to call it,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
some people say, oh, I want to systematize my business,
Right.
I want to have a franchisable business, or it's called everything but the operations or the
Yes.
business infrastructure. So that is another huge challenge for me and my team as we put information out there about what we do. So the first thing they will usually run into is the fact that yes, there are resources out there that can help you operationally, but a lot of time it's reserved for the big guys,
Mm-hmm.
the very large, the Apples and the Googles of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's reserved for those types of companies. And if they don't run into that issue, they'll likely run into the second issue, which is the resources are reserved for manufacturing companies. So there's a framework, Lean Six Sigma, right? I am a Lean Six Sigma practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm happy to explain that
Mm-hmm.
if listeners don't know what that is. But even when I'm teaching my Lean Six Sigma course through Purdue University, without fail, the students who are coming from service-based companies, they just put up a wall. They're like, this doesn't apply to me, because Lean Six Sigma is born out of manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they instantly think, this does not apply to me. I can't do this. That concept doesn't apply to this line of work that we're in. But it does. A lot of these skills and these principles are transferable. And again, I'm just grateful to be able to come onto platforms like yours where I can debunk a lot of these misconceptions and myths that people might have when it comes to, what does it really mean to take a look at your operations and
Mm-hmm.
systematize your business?
So I have a confession to make.
Okay, okay.
This morning on the morning show with myself and Nicole Bernard, we have a morning show now. We drop here on LinkedIn, X, YouTube, Monday to Friday, 7:00. We talked about Lean Sigma 6, and I thought it was a fraternity. Nicole thought it was a sorority. We're like, oh, yeah, Lean Sigma 6 is all confident. Yeah, we must do that fraternity, the sorority that Lisa talked. Someone talked to her about that. Sure enough, it's a process, just like ISO 2000 or something. So, listen, nation, nation. While Alicia's getting herself out of control, I have to confess that I just don't know everything. I'm sorry to let you all down, but I just can't know everything. I know a lot, and I'm well read, but the fact that I didn't know Lean Sigma 6, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry that I let you all down. That's why we get smarter guests on the show than me. I know I tell you guys that I got a lot going on in here, but to complement what's going on in here, I got to supplement with people like Alicia Butler Pierre. True story.
That is the first time I've ever heard anybody say that. You know what people usually will say?
What's that?
Because with that certification,
Yeah.
there's different levels, like white belt, yellow belt, green belt, black belt. And so a lot of times people think it has something to do with martial arts.
Believe me, Nicole did. She's like, yeah, that's a martial
Oh.
arts thing. I'm like, what? Fraternity.
That is hilarious.
We are breaking news here on the lab about the lack of knowledge on the hosts over here. So yeah, we just get up and read the internet and try to bring smart people on. This is so. You know what's great about this, Alicia, is my ambition with this show is to be entertaining and informing, which I think we're doing today, because we're talking about something that's typically boring and typically very dry and typically. But I want to tell you something, because I want to tell you something. When I was building ICU Seat, and I'm giving this to you so I can give this to Nation. if you're starting a business, I cannot encourage you enough right now, especially if it's a virtual remote type business. In the olden days, when we built the business, we'd have filing cabinets and we could physically see the paper in there. And we could physically see that perhaps that paper in those filing cabinets represented processes or represented data or represented value. I said to myself when I was building ICUC, Alicia, that those physical things I needed to show virtually so I could represent that to a potential buyer one day. So I recognized that the more buttoned down I was in Salesforce at the time, I think I was Salesforce customer number 2.
Oh,
I was
wow.
so neurotic about making sure that all of our processes were buttoned down because when I came down to, I knew that I wanted to sell it one day. I was using the metaphor. Alicia's going to walk into my building one day and say, okay, Keith, show me the filing cabinets. Show me your files. Show me your customers. Show me how you do things. I always asked myself those questions every time I was building a business so that I could confidently say, yeah, here you go. Yeah, here you go. When I sold it, Alicia, Salesforce was relatively new at the time. People were like, you have your entire business inside of there? Yeah. Like everything's all data driven? Yeah. All the processes are all there? Yeah. I swear I got more zeros added to the purchase line because of that neuroticism. Because I
Mm.
supported what you sell, which is buttoned down, predictable. Because then when it came to growing the business, Alicia, we just threw money. We just threw money at processes to pull levers to either drive revenue up or drive expenses down. Predictable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when I saw you for what you did, I'm like, I got to have her on the show so I can share my experiences with Nation, draw out the value you can bring to the nation. So if somebody out there is listening to us going, how did Bill sell his company for a lot of money? I'll tell you how. Talk to Alicia Butler Pierre because she'll help you. If you're not buttoned down, that's the quickest way to drive value to your business. Button down your fucking business. It's true. It's true. Am I wrong?
Mic drop.
But it's true.
No, it is absolutely true. If you look at you know what I like listening to, Keith? Have you ever
Keith
watched those
Bilous.
mass I'm sorry?
Keith Bilous.
Yes.
You said you like this.
I do like
I
listening to
thought it was
Keith
a
Bilous.
rhetorical question. Oh, good. Thank
I
you.
do like listening to, I love listening to Keith Bilous. I also love watching and listening to the masterclass.com. Have you ever
Yes.
watched?
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
There's that
But
master
if
work.
you watch any of the CEOs that are interviewed, I remember watching Howard Schultz with
Yes.
Starbucks. But they all talk about this. If you
Yes.
look at any I would say household, the brand of any, any household name type
Mhm.
product,
Mhm.
and you actually start researching the story behind the product, operations comes into the picture at some point. It
Yes.
just has to. It absolutely has to. Things have to be buttoned up. And to get to you brought up something else super important. The fact that you had everything in Salesforce. Salesforce became, it sounds like your company's operating
Yeah,
system,
you're right. You're absolutely right.
right?
You're putting it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
And so we have to all challenge ourselves to do the same thing. For my company, we use Notion. That is our operating system.
Yes.
For someone else, it could, I know people who do a lot of things in Monday.com. Some folks use Asana. I mean, we all have these digital technologies at our disposal. But to your point, Keith, if we want to grow a business, we as the leaders, the founders, have to get out of the way. We have to take as much information as we can out of our heads, get it into a format, preferably something that's digital because it can easily be shared with others.
Hmm.
Others can easily access that information, whether it's on their phone, a laptop, a tablet. It's at their fingertips. The more you do that, the greater the value of your business. There is
Yes.
a company right now, and they shall remain nameless. They are owned by, this is a client of mine, they are owned by a private equity firm.
Mhm.
They had the ability to sell last year. You know why the sell didn't go through?
Why is that?
Because there was so much emphasis on this. It's funny, it's going back to sales. there was so much emphasis on the sales. Oh, we have this product line and that product line, and this is what we can do in sales and blah, 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 blah. But the potential buyers all wanted to look behind the curtain. They wanted to look underneath the hood. Yeah, you're telling me you have a presentation that's all shiny and pretty, and you're showing me all the numbers and the growth potential and the EBITDA and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But if we were to buy this, could we literally pick up where you've left off?
Boom. Yep.
And the answer was a resounding no.
Yeah.
When they really started digging, again, looking behind the curtain,
Yes.
they didn't like what they saw, man, and the sale did not go through. And it was frustrating for my point of contact at this particular company because he's an operations person. And he kept sounding the alarm, waving the white flag, like, hey guys, hey everybody, shouldn't we be paying attention to our operations? Shouldn't we have all of our data visible on a dashboard so that everybody knows what the numbers are and it tells a picture? We know the health of how our company is performing in every aspect of the business, not just one area over another. And his call fell on deaf ears.
Yeah.
But you know what? Money talks.
Yes.
And when you miss out on a sale like that, that got their attention. And it was unfortunate that it had to happen in that way, right? They missed out on a huge opportunity to sell the business, but now they know exactly what they need to do operationally to get back on track and to increase the actual value of their company.
I had a good friend of mine, business partner, say to me, and Business Athlete Nation has heard me say this so many times, and it's cliche, but it's worth repeating, especially part of this conversation, especially with what you just said. When you're selling your company, it is actually a 1,000 piece puzzle. And if one piece does not fit, the millions you want somebody to give you for your company, or billions, it just ain't going to happen. So you can look at that puzzle and you can go, I got 999 of them done. But then somebody says, hey, Alicia, yeah, Keith, let me see behind the kimono so I can finish the puzzle. Sorry. And then sales done. And I've had colleagues, exact same breath, you just did the same thing. And again, we like to give nuggets here, Alicia. I think you'll appreciate this. One of the best decisions I made with my previous company was I said to somebody, I want you to own Salesforce. I'm going to pay you to own it, manage it, make sure that it is an integral part of the organization, that it is the red thread through the business. That was the best investment I ever made. And I'll tell you why. Because I've seen so many companies pay for platforms like Salesforce and Notion and Monday.com. And they say, oh yeah, well, I got to spend 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year on this platform. No, actually, you got to double that. Because if you're going to pay for it and nobody's going to use it, then don't even pay for it to start with. So, if you're going to buy a Corvette, but you can't afford to run it, then don't buy the Corvette. Do not invest in Salesforce or Notion or Monday.com if you're not going to put an asset onto it to make sure that it's weaved into the organization, used in the organization, because that is the value of the platform. There's no good for the platform if nobody's using it. And you know as well as I do, you've built a significant business on a lot of companies that are like, Notion? Huh? Oh yeah, we have it, but we don't use it. Salesforce? Oh yeah, we've been using that for 10 years and oh yeah, but we've never used it very much. I can imagine, Alicia, the profit margins on a lot of Salesforce customers that don't use the platform.
Wow.
You know as well as I do.
Yeah, you have to be all in. You really do.
You do.
Because once you find that tool that can serve as your operating system,
yes,
you have to go all in, man. And would you agree, Keith, that I want people who are watching us or listening to us,
yes,
or both,
yes,
I want to be very clear about something. This is not an overnight thing. And a lot of times when I'm talking to clients or potential clients, they get a little bummed out. Like, what do you mean this is going to take like 6 months? Like, really? Like, Are you kidding me? It really should take like 18 months to really get this where it needs to be. But I always my rebuttal is always this. You didn't build your business overnight, so why do you think you're going to fix it overnight? It is not easy. And I want to be very realistic about that. And I
Mhm.
know you can attest to this, Keith. It's painful. I mean, I'm going through it right now with my company. That's why I need a nap. I need my afternoon siesta. Okay? It's real out here in these streets. Okay? It is so real out here in these streets. I am sleep deprived. The hustle and the struggle
It's
is
real.
real.
It's real.
Okay?
Yeah.
Seriously, it is real. But I know, Keith, that 6 months from now, if you and I talk again, I'm like,
Yeah.
Keith, I'm going to Japan next month. I can't wait. I can leave and know that everything is
Mm.
taken care of. Everything is digitized. It's at my fingertips. I can access everything from my phone, whether it's payroll or checking in on the progress of a project or signing a proposal, signing a new contract, closing a deal.
Mhm.
Um, and we are getting there. So even internally, we're taking a dose of our own medicine, and the medicine is bitter. It is bitter, but it will pay off handsomely.
Well, the more effort you put into shoring up the foundation operationally of your business, the harder it's going to be for somebody to take it down. And the harder it's going to be for it to fall apart when sales go sideways. So while you're busy shoring everything up operationally, yes, you're actually investing in the fact that you don't want it to fall apart in the future. Right. So why I invited you on it, because I really am drinking the Kool-Aid operation of what you're selling. And I cannot encourage any business owner enough to pay attention to this conversation, right? Without losing the balance of that razor's edge where you got to sell. You can sell. And if you can manage that razor's edge, sell, operationally sound, you're off to the races. I really believe you are. And again, I had success in the past, Alicia, by having definitive roles. And maybe you can speak about this with organizations where, in a role play scenario, I'm saying, hey, Alicia, you're taking care of the back of the house, and I'm going to trust and commit to everything that you're owning back there. Well, you're trusting and committing to everything that I'm owning on the front of the house. Then we're going to come together on decisive decisions. That really is the magic on growing operationally as well, is it not? Speak to that.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And it's difficult to find someone who can do both.
Yes.
Manage the front and the back. We all have our sweet spot. We all have our skills. Um, I love functioning in the back
Yes.
office,
Yes.
and I would be the perfect companion to you. Like
Yes.
I would be the omega to your alpha,
Yes.
the yin to your yang, or the yang to your yin. Um,
My
and I'm
soul's
thinking
not pepper.
there's masculine and feminine. So,
Yeah,
but you get my
I
point, though,
do.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So absolutely, you have to find other people. Another one of I told you, moonshot was one of my words for this
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
Another word is partnerships.
Ah.
So I recognize, you know what? I probably can't hire somebody to come in and focus on the sales and business development the way I know someone needs to focus on it, but I can partner with another company that has the
Mhm.
same interests and they do have that skill.
Mhm.
I would much rather 10% of something than 100% of nothing. Okay? It
Yeah.
is all about partnerships this year, baby, and getting over ego. I think that's another thing
Yes.
that can get in our way, especially as founders
Yes.
when we start growing. And a
Yes.
lot of times the people who start the companies aren't the people, because I read your story, Keith, and that happened to you, right? You said you got like a phone call and they were like, well, Keith, this has been fun.
See ya.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
your 10 years of staying on during the transition,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but your services are no longer needed.
Yeah. We're
Right?
going that way. You're going that way. See ya.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. So I encourage anybody, go listen or watch or read about the stories of entrepreneurs, or I would say companies, brands that you really love. Go
Mhm.
read the story, the backstory. Lately, Keith, I've been indulging. I'm not even into fashion like that, but I just find it fascinating. I've been watching a lot of like documentaries on YouTube lately about the stories behind these department stores that are very popular, or fashion, labels, design houses, fashion houses. I just find it fascinating, and listening to these stories, and the story is almost always, there's different paths,
Mhm.
right, that people take to get to that pinnacle of success, but there are patterns that you start to notice,
Mhm. Mhm.
and oftentimes a part of that pattern is, as leaders, as I'm sorry, as founders, we have to get out of the way at some
Yeah.
point.
I thought you were going to say you're on a binge fest of like I have been on the most recent season of Housewives of Beverly Hills and the demise of Kyle and
I
Nick.
do not watch any of the housewives, and
Well,
I
I'm telling you, yesterday morning on the morning show, I made the big confession, made the big reveal that when Uncle Keith here needs to go have some dessert and get the old mush out of his head because he's been too busy on sales or been too busy operationally running the business, he goes and turns on some dessert and lets the old housewives fly.
well, I'm in Atlanta,
I
so
know you are. That's why
the franchises. It's so interesting to me whenever I go to other countries and stuff. Whenever people ask, "Well, where are
probably
you from?"
asked
and
you.
I say
Yeah.
Atlanta, and they're like, oh, "The
The housewives.
Housewives," and I'm like, "Are you serious? You watch that?" And they're like, "Yes."
It's modern day soap opera. So what's funny? You know what's funny is now that we've talked about it, the next time it comes across your radar, you're thinking, "Oh, Uncle Keith over here." You're like, "Oh, yeah, he watches it." Yeah, true story. I know how it works. I know how it works. But listen, I know we got to wrap it up because you got a nap coming up in a few minutes. So I want to wrap it up here with a key point because you
Okay.
mentioned something that I think is important for Nation to think about, which is even as the owner, operator, the founder, you never can get your ego too big where you can't walk back into the kitchen to learn how to make pizzas again. You need to always be able to step back into the kitchen, learn how to make pizzas, make sure everybody's dotting the I's and crossing the T's, because as a CEO founder, that operational foundation, those things that are happening that you're not paying attention to, that's adding the zeros when you go to sell the company one day. That's what you have to pay attention to, would be the advice I'd offer to anybody listening.
What came to mind as I listened to you just now, Keith,
Yeah.
that show Undercover Boss.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because the larger your company grows, the further removed you are
Yes.
from the actual work,
Yes.
right? So I love what you just said.
Yeah,
I
never be
completely
afraid.
agree.
Never be afraid. And I know people chastise or don't, and this figure I'm going to mention is a polarizing figure, but as an entrepreneur, I do respect the fact that Elon's not afraid to roll up his sleeves and go sleep on
Mm,
the floor, get into the factory, go make the car, go make the rocket ship. And I'm not here to cast judgment on his leadership or anything that he does politically. I'm here purely as an entrepreneur to say, I respect that. I respect somebody goes into the building and says, why is there 8,000 people working here? We only need 2,000. And I'm going
mm.
to go learn how to make pizzas so we can go and try to operationally get more sound, because there's a lot of waste. And we haven't even had a chance to talk about waste today. That'll be part 2 of Alicia Butler Pierre's conversation with Keith Bilous on operational waste inside the
Yeah,
business, if you'll come back and join me again.
I absolutely will, because in Lean Six Sigma, there is something we refer to it as the 8 waste, the 8 types of waste.
Okay.
So it would be great if we could
Well, then
talk
let's do
about
that. Let's cause that a hook. So part 2, Keith Bilous, Alicia Butler Pierre. We're going to do eight what?
the 8 types of waste.
8 types of waste. And we're not
Yes.
talking body waste. We're talking 8 types of waste.
And there's an acronym that we use.
I'm
Well, there's two. One is downtime, the other is Tim Woods.
Tim Woods. Okay.
Yeah, so those are two acronyms that we use to remind ourselves of the 8 types of waste. And again, not bodily waste, but waste operational.
Or waist sizes. No, we're not. We're body friendly here in the lab. We don't care what your waist size is. We invite waists of all types and sizes and colors.
No body shaming
No
here.
body shaming at all. No,
It's a safe
absolutely not.
space.
100% it is. Alicia Butler Pierre, you have been awesome. Again, the nerd in me, believe it or not, was excited coming into this because this stuff interests me. And and that's why I want to create boring content, make it entertaining, because this needs to be heard by people. And through the entertaining and the laughter, there were some key messages we delivered to the audience that I hope they paid attention to. Operations is really damn important. You got to sell, but if you don't have the ship buttoned up, you got nothing. So, Alicia Butler Pierre, how can Business Athlete Nation find you? How can they get a hold of you? How can they connect with you to improve their business? Here's your chance to promote a little bit about you and the business before we walk you out of the lab.
Sure. In terms of social media, I play on LinkedIn. So you can find me there, Alicia Butler Pierre. My company is Equilibria. Our website is eqbsystems.com. And if you want to connect with me personally and see what I'm up to, there's my personal website, which is aliciabutlerpierre.com.
Awesome. Alicia, thank you for being a wonderful guest today and having some fun with me.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed bantering with you, and I thoroughly enjoyed your sense of humor and playing along with me.
Thank you, Keith. You are a breath of fresh air. You really are. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm glad we're recording that too, by the way. So my kids can hear it's part of the trailer and the hooks.
You have me on record saying it. There's no turning back.
No turning back. All right. And she's coming back for an episode too. So we're going to talk waste. Alicia Butler Pierre, I'm going to put you back in the green room. I'm going to say bye to the audience and walk you out. Okay. Walk you back to your bed so you can go to sleep. All right. Hang tight. Hang tight. All right. So Keith Bilous, Alicia Butler Pierre, we talked how to get your business organized today. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation like I did. And I'm going to leave you with this. Everything we talked about today was what I put in place to make sure that when I went to sell my company, I got the most value. It's not rocket science. Dot the I's, cross the T's, pay attention to how the pizza's made. And then as you keep selling more pizzas, never lose sight of how the pizza's made. Trust me. It's cliche advice, but it works. Get your data in place, be organized. So when somebody comes, knocks on your door and says, "Hey, Keith, yeah? I want to buy your company for a few $1 million. Okay. Can I see behind the kimono?" You're willing to open it up. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go walk Alicia to the bedroom so she can go to sleep on her own, just to make sure that's all clear. She's going for her nap because she's busy building her company. And we know that as entrepreneurs, we got to get our rest. So I'm going to go say goodbye to Alicia. I see y'all tomorrow. Mornings in the lab. We drop here, myself and Nicole Bernard. We got a guest coming in tomorrow. A gentleman to talk about an AI girlfriend. I don't know. You're going to have to tune in tomorrow, 7 o'clock Central Time. Myself, Keith, Nicole. Mornings in the lab. I'm getting out of here. I'll see you guys later.